All right. Tony D and Little Joan somewhere behind me. And this, oh, there she is. I forgot. I put her on the desk so she'd leave me alone. This is a screenwriter's take on Master Gardener. And I just rewatched my trailer reaction, so I also get to analyze how accurate I was predicting what would happen in the movie. Smash like and subscribe. Thank you for smash liking and subscribing. Check out my books, links in the description. Comedy Horror in South Jersey. It's the Pineys, books 1 through 15, available at Amazon.com. Don't forget, Kindle Unlimited is free. So, was I accurate about my breakdown of the movie? No. No. I thought it would be an action packed thing, at least for part of it, and the movie's super slow. It's more of a play. The action is completely understated or happens in a way that undercuts any kind of excitement in it. So initially, and that's the movie I wanted to see. I guess I talked myself into that movie. That is not this movie. Um, what it is, to recap, um, and let me give you my non-spoiler review. I didn't like the movie. I didn't like the movie for details that I can only get into in the non-spoiler review. Um, my girlfriend kind of liked it because she liked the ending, um, but I didn't like it. Thinking about it, I'm like a no. This is a no for me, dog. Um, so the movie I pitched in my trailer analysis, that's the kind of movie I wanted to see. That was definitely not the movie. Sigourney Weaver is good, and Edgerton, Edgerton is good, but the movie is too long and boring. Paul Schrader's direction takes forever, and then he does something in the movie that just seems he ignores three or four basic things that I think are an issue. Okay, let me get into the spoiler review because it's the only way I can explain myself. So what I predicted was it was going to be a revenge thing. That Joel Edgerton was some sort of vigilante who killed the racist, and then went on to reinvent himself and now is hiding as a master gardener. But the plot of the movie begins with Sigourney Weaver, his boss. He has a life working for her and having sex with her. I know. And she has a grandniece. I thought it was a granddaughter when I watched the trailer. Her grandniece is in trouble, so she forces Edgerton to take her on as an intern to teach her the ropes of gardening because she wants to train her up to eventually take over her garden estate. Okay, so this is like a rich person's garden that's been around for years and years and years. So, and Schrader's direction is slow, man. It's a slow build that gets slower, and I could tell you the moment it turned for me. Um, the character of the grandniece um, has way too much power in the movie, in my view, and I think I know why. So let me go through the events. First act, Edgerton is doing his job. He's getting ready for the new season. There's going to be a big charity. He's working with Sigourney Weaver. He's this like amazing master gardener. He writes about gardening. He reads about gardening. He just knows everything about gardening. And you keep seeing him, and at first I'm just like, God, this movie's boring. All right, let's get to the part where he starts killing dudes, because that's what I thought was going to happen. Eventually, he's faced with taking on this girl, this troubled girl, as an intern to teach her the ropes. And so he does, and at first she seems to be doing fine. And then out of the blue, Edgerton's getting dressed, and you see that he has a bunch of racist tattoos, like really racist ones. And when I saw that, I was very confused, because then I was like, okay, well, he's having sex with Sigourney Weaver, so she's obviously seen these tattoos, so she knows he's a racist. Doesn't seem to care. So what is this all about? And you keep catching glimpses of a gun firing, a motorcycle crashing, and I'm like, oh, that must have happened to him earlier or something. Eventually, the grandniece comes to work one day and she's all beaten up. And they're like, what happened? And I'm like, okay. Now I see what's going to happen. He's going to go and beat the crap out of these guys. And, find the guys who did it and, like, kill them or beat the crap out of them, right? No. He patches her up. Eventually, he finds out who they are. And then contacts a dude that he meets with, and it turns out he's in the witness protection program because he was a super racist militia guy with a bunch of militia dudes, and he took down the militia. He turned state's evidence, and so he's meeting with the FBI handler, who he thinks owes him a favor. So he asks him if he'll do something about the street gang that beat up the girl. So the FBI guy says, oh yeah, sure, we'll handle it. By the way, I'm retiring. So next time, it's not going to be me. I'm retiring in 102 days, so next time it's not going to be me. He's like, oh, well, maybe we can get together for lunch after. And he's like, no. So it's clear they're not friends. Although Edgerton seems to think they're friends, which already started to undermine his character for me. I'm like, oh, okay, so this guy doesn't know what he's doing at all. So the next thing that happens is Edgerton, the girl, says something to Sigourney Weaver that pisses her off, and then she has to go to a luncheon with her, and Edgerton has to deliver her a dress that she's going to wear. As he's delivering the dress, there's a moment where they start touching, and like you think they're going to start making out and have sex, and she of course starts to pull up the shirt, and he immediately pulls it down and says, no, this is inappropriate or whatever, and walks away. Then they have the luncheon. Sigourney Weaver somehow knows what happened, but the thing is, Edgerton didn't do anything. He spurned the advances of the girl, but Sigourney's mad at both of them, and she has a breakdown and throws them both out. So to me, immediately, when all this went down, I'm like, this kind of doesn't make any sense. The grandniece is too young for Edgerton, in my view. She just looked too young. They didn't seem to be in love, and he narrates it and seems to be completely in love with this girl all of a sudden. She seemed to have no interest in him except in that one scene. And I'm just like, this kind of is coming out of left field. And again, we don't know why he still has all these tattoos, because my initial reaction upon seeing the tattoos is, oh, he's not a racist anymore, or he quit the gang. Why didn't he have all the tattoos removed? Because you'd think that would be like the first thing you would do, right? You would immediately go to a place and say, listen, I need these tattoos removed because I used to be in a terrible gang and I'm out and I'm trying to put my life back together. And they'd be over the moon to like remove them for you, right? Initially, when I saw him, I thought maybe he's unrepentant, because it is possible to be in the witness protection program, turn on your buddies, and still be a total criminal a-hole. But according to the FBI guy, Edgerton had changed his ways over the last 10 years. Even though the FBI guys didn't let him see his daughter, won't let him have any contact, um, and all that. But he's now suddenly in love with the grandniece, and Sigourney Weaver throws them both out on their ear. They end up in a hotel. Now, in the beginning of the movie, they made allusions to that the grandniece took drugs but wasn't addicted. Well, it turns out she's a full-blown junkie, and Edgerton then has to detox her, which he does, and good on him. Um, Now, all the way up until this point, the girl hasn't seen his tattoos. So then, out of the blue, he just takes his shirt off while she's lying in the bed recovering so she can see the tattoos. And at first, you're kind of like, did she see him? We don't know. The next morning, she's like, I saw your tattoos. And then now he's got to suddenly explain himself, which kind of makes no sense. It's like, what he should have done is say, hey, I have something to show you. Or you'd think he'd do this. Hey, I have something to show you. I'm not this person anymore, but here are the tattoos. Instead, he sort of has to explain it, the same way anyway. She gets pissed off in a scene that is textbook. It just was like acting 101. There's a drink of water on the table that she doesn't even drink. And then she goes, whoosh, in a fit of anger and knocks it off the table. And I just went, acting, when I saw that. So the movie starts to break down for me at this point, and I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. He could have gotten these tattoos removed. He's been at his gang for 10 years. There's no evidence that he's actually repentant for his racist views. He killed a bunch of people, by the way, and the feds let him off. They don't seem to care that he killed a pastor, a black pastor, in cold blood. Killed some other guys, yet he has gone free. Just because he flipped on the other guys. Seems like a bad trade-off. He seems like a scumbag. Total scumbag, an unrepentant scumbag. Seems like the sort of redemption arc you would have for this character is that he's going to die. That he's going to sacrifice his own life. That he falls in love with this girl, to me, makes no sense. 0 sense. And I gotta say, the actress playing the girl, 0 chemistry. Like, Edgerton looks kind of intense, but the whole thing is undermined by the fact that he's romantically involved with her. And then there's this weird scene, and I can only describe it like this. She comes in, decides to be with him, takes off her clothes, tells him to take off his clothes, and at first he only takes off his pants, like he's going to keep his shirt on to have sex with her. And she's like, no, the shirt. And then she checks out all the tattoos, tells him he has to get them all removed, and then says, okay. At that point, Edgerton's character kneels down before her and gives her oral. And it kind of reminds me of, do you ever see those scenes on the news where you had people kneeling during the George Floyd thing? It kind of reminded me of that. It was weird. It was weirdly symbolic of like, oh, we're going to show the racist. We're going to have one of them do this to a black girl. And I just thought it's kind of weird symbolism. Like, why wouldn't he just he's having sex with her for the first time and he goes there. That's sort of odd. He doesn't even kiss her. That's really odd. Really odd. It didn't seem like a loving moment. It seemed like he was worshiping her. And for no reason. Like, there wasn't any build-up like he was worshipful of her. He was just in love with her, according to the narration. So it comes off all wrong to me. He doesn't seem like a guy in love. He seems like a guy who, I don't know, doesn't know what he's doing. Meanwhile, while they're doing this, at some point he drove her to her apartment to get her stuff. She got high in the apartment, and while he's waiting for her, she pointed out her boyfriend and his assistant on the street. So he stops to threaten them. Now, part of the reason he does that is because he's checking to see if the FBI guy did what he was told, which was to threaten this two street level dealers so they wouldn't be a problem anymore. But there's no way to really tell if that happened. And I really didn't understand what was the point of that. Like, if they weren't going to, kill him or throw him in jail, these guys would probably do something. So, to me, it would have made more sense for him to just say to the girl, move on to the estate grounds out of your terrible neighborhood. And keep in mind, Sigourney Weaver wanted this girl to take over the gardens. She wanted her to be her heir, so to speak, and be trained in gardening. I don't know why. You saw the neighborhood she lived in. It was a wreck. Now, it turns out she's a junkie, but it turns out Edgerton's good at detoxing junkies and was one himself and also detoxed. But it doesn't make any sense for that to have not happened already. So, while they're detoxing and having sex, the two street dealers go to the gardens and wreck the place. Like, wreck it. Now Edgerton shows up with her, and he's going to solve all the problems. And even though Sigourney Weaver was furious at him, now she's kind of accepting his help. So then he finally goes back into his old cabin where he lived when he lived on the grounds, and he gets a gun that's hidden in the floor. And now I'm like, oh, okay, now he's going to like kick some egg. Now we're going to see the real dude. And at first he wants to go by himself, and the grandniece like, no, I got to go with you. To which I'm like, I don't really see why she needs to go with him. But she insists. He says, okay, we go at night. We do things my way. Okay? So they go to this house, the party house. And there's a guy outside. And she starts talking to him. And as she's talking to him, Edgerton literally just walks up behind her, walks around her and around the guy, and just knocks him out. Just like punches him with a gun. And I'm just like, that seems stupid. He seems like a very poor security guy, even for drug dealers. Like, a drug dealer, security dude, would be especially wary of a dude just walking up. Just walking up, who he never seen before. But he goes down. Edgerton and the girl go inside the party house. Edgerton shoots off a gun, drives everybody else out, except the drug dealer and his friend, who have beaten up his girl. He then offers the gun to the girl and says, you can kill him if you want. Which is, again, another bizarre scene, because it's quite possible she would have shot them. I mean, she was a junkie up until like a few days ago. The guys did beat her up. She didn't seem the most reliable person, but she says no and walks out. So then Edgerton, instead of shooting the guys, like kneecaps them badly. Which I thought, okay, yeah, I guess that's better. He doesn't want to murder rap, doesn't want to go back to prison or whatever. And then they go back to Sigourney Weaver's. Now at this point, I'm also thinking to myself, Edgerton's not a great guy. He's a murderer, former racist, total scumbag. And, he's been, he's a witness in a witness protection program, but that doesn't mean he's a good guy. And again, like, he seems to have had this turnaround on race relations that doesn't seem evident in the movie. In fact, it seems like the opposite, because it seems like Sigourney Weaver's okay with his terrible tattoos. But they go back to Sigourney Weaver. And now everything's cool because he took care of business, right? I guess. I don't know what would stop the same two idiots from showing up to the gardens with guns. And so he confronts Sigourney Weaver and says, I'm going to move back. I'm going to fix the garden. And I'm going to live with the grandniece as husband and wife. Which, again, I'm not really buying that whole relationship. I think she's too young. I don't think the actress really emoted that she was in love with Edgerton. But Sigourney Weaver at first objects to the point at which she points a gun at him and threatens to kill him. But it turns out the gun she's pointing is an old antique. It doesn't work. And then she basically is forced to acquiesce for reasons that don't make any sense, right? Earlier in the movie, she kicked them both out of her property, and Edgerton said, well, it's her place. What are we going to do? Now she seems completely helpless because Edgerton fixed a problem that he caused. Doesn't make any sense that Sigourney Weaver would still have him on the property and would allow him to continue with this relationship, and a relationship that doesn't seem good. So what I think should have happened is, number one, he should not have had a romantic relationship with this young girl. He just shouldn't have. He looks older than her. I mean, not so older that he couldn't have a relationship with her. That's her there. And but she's portrayed as really young, naive, drug addict. He was more of a mentor. I think it would have been a better movie if he was just her mentor, number one. Number two, he's also a really terrible person. Now, he's turned his life around, but he did murder people in cold blood, including a black pastor. Seems like too big of a hurdle to overcome with a character. I kind of can't get behind him unless he makes the ultimate sacrifice, in which case I could say, okay, this redeems him, right? Like, you can imagine a situation where he has to fight off guys and save her, thereby redeeming himself. Like, that, to me, would have been an appropriate sacrifice. Shacking up with the grandniece at the end of the movie just didn't make any sense to me. Just didn't make any sense. My girlfriend liked it for the romantic part of it, but I didn't find it very romantic that a guy who was a former racist suddenly has this turnaround that he's giving a black girl oral sex and just saying that he suddenly loves her. It just didn't make sense that he would even be in love with her. I mean, you watch the movie and tell me if you want, but I just didn't get any chemistry between those two. Edgerton's a good actor. He played the role to the hilt, and Sigourney Weaver's really good as the older woman who is scorned. But number one, she throws him out, and Edgerton didn't have sex with this girl. And there's no way that Sigourney Weaver... And there's a weird scene where, like, after he goes to the girl, he delivers this dress, and she makes a move on him. And he's like, no. And he walks out. He unbuckles his pants on the way out of the place for some reason. And it kind of didn't make sense. Like, who does that? Like, why are you unbuckling your pants as you're walking along? But apparently Sigourney Weaver saw that and assumed he had just had sex with her, and he unbuckled his pants on the way out because I guess he still had a raging boner. Like, it doesn't make any sense. If anything, he would be rebuckling his pants, maybe. But I don't even know why he would do that. He didn't take off his pants in the scene. He didn't even try. She tried to pull up his shirt, and he immediately pulled it down and said, no, this is inappropriate, and walked out. There was no reason for him to mess with his pants. It just wasn't. It didn't seem organic in the least. It seemed like something that had to happen in order for Sigourney Weaver to jump to the conclusion. And again, he did not have sex with her, so he did nothing wrong in that scene. So it seems to me it was weird that it played out the way it did. And you know, but Edgerton's character is so kind of disgusting. The only way he could redeem himself for killing innocent people would be to sacrifice himself to save innocent people. And it doesn't seem like he's done that at all. It just seems like the FBI is done with him. They don't really care about him. They're just keeping him alive because they promised him that because he was a witness. Sigourney Weaver doesn't really care about him because she was just using him for sex, and you know, she was a good employee. And even this girl doesn't really seem to be in love with him. Like, I'm not getting that vibe from her. And it seemed to be a relationship that would have been better served had Edgerton completely spurned her advances and said, no, 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 no. I'm not doing this so you could have sex with me. I'm doing this because I need to redeem myself. And you wouldn't understand, kind of thing. To me, it would have been better that he never showed her the tattoos. Or that she discovered them and then, you know, left him, and then he had to go rescue her. But it wasn't that kind of movie. Like, there wasn't a big action scene. Hardly at all. The action that happened was sort of mostly off camera, or it was way in the past with the militia guys, who seemed to be bad, but like, and Edgerton seemed to be like one of the worst ones. So I'm not sure. And you know, there was a lot of dialogue about him talking about plants, and that was his shtick. But after a while, that got tiresome too. So this, to me, this entire movie was very tiresome. It felt longer than it was, and the relationship between this ex-racist and the black girl doesn't seem to jibe. It just wasn't a good relationship. Like, it might have been better if she had been a healing force in his life. Like, he still had a lot of pain, and then she helped him deal with that pain in some way, and because of that, they fall in love. Something like that. You know, he shows her the flowers, but she shows him how to love again. And you develop that. And then he had more reason to betray Sigourney Weaver and would have betrayed her in a bigger way. Or I think it would have been a better movie if he just spurned her advances and said, no, 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 this is inappropriate. I'm here to help you succeed. I'm not here to hop in bed with you. And then it would have been a much better movie had he made the ultimate sacrifice at the end and, you know, fought off a gang who tried to kill her and killed her relentless boyfriend, let's say, to know that she's safe now. And then he dies at the end, or he goes to jail. Like, he breaks his parole, and now they're going to take him to jail, or they're going to move him to another town. Maybe they're not going to take him to jail, but something like that. Yeah. So I can't recommend this movie. My analysis of it was far too generous. It was a complex movie, I'll say that. I will say Edgerton and Sigourney Weaver's performances are good. To me, the story just doesn't hold up. Between the tattoos that aren't removed and, you know, he could have been maybe in the process of still removing them. That might have worked. Could have been like halfway done with that process maybe, and that's why he still had some of them on his body, but it didn't even take that long. And it had been 10 years, so yeah, it just didn't work for me. This is a no from me, dog. And that's it for me, Tony D and Little Joan. Check us out on the green site, the orange site, and the black site for more videos. Also, check us out at the live stream tonight at 7, where we do it live. We'll see you in the next one.